Welcome back to Elevation 44. I'm Beverly, or B for those of you who are new here. Welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Today we are wrapping up our series in the outer planet transits, where we are looking at all the outer planets, the big generational planets, from Pluto to Neptune and now Uranus, to see how they're going to impact us over the next 10 to 20 years, because they are radically changing the landscape of what everything looks like and how we operate. So we are diving into Uranus and Gemini today, and Uranus and Gemini is going to happen between July 7th, so yes, 7/7/2025, and continue all the way until May 22nd, 2033. So this is about almost an 8-year transit. And in those 8 years, Uranus is definitely going to do some things. Uranus is probably my favorite planet to talk about because it's just something else. Like, I am annoyed by how it operates and fascinated and excited by how it operates all at the same time. Just because it brings those unexpected changes that you just don't see coming. So there's a part of it that's exciting, but then when you're affected by it, you're like, damn, like this is something that I was not planning for and completely put me on my behind. But in hindsight, after it does blow over, you're like, wow, actually, I'm glad that happened. It happened for the better. So Uranus is like that energy I love talking about. It's the liberator. It is about freedom. It comes to liberate you. It comes to put you in your most authentic place. It awakens you. It gives you this next level insight and information. It is the change maker. It's the disruptor. If something's not working, it's coming to disrupt that entire process. I'm gonna knock down your Legos. You're gonna start over because the way you were building it was crappy, absolutely crappy, and it's not gonna work. So that is Uranus's energy. It's just, it's tied to technology. It's tied to space travel or exploration. There's so much that comes with Uranus. It's just such a interesting planet. And astrology is said to be tied into Uranus's energy as well. So maybe that's why I enjoy talking about Uranus. So what does it mean when this great awakener, this liberator, goes into the sign of Gemini, our most intellectual energy in the zodiac? Not saying the other energies or signs aren't intellectual in their own way, but Gemini is the brains, the brains energy of the bunch. And Gemini is tied to how we process information and then how we connect with each other based off of our level of processing and understanding. How do we communicate? How do we share ideas? How do we educate ourselves? What is our community built off of? And it also ties into social norms. So all of this is Gemini's energy. And transportation. Transportation is also something that falls into Gemini's energy as well. So these are some of the themes or shakeups or areas of shakeup that we're going to see these radical changes happening in with Uranus there, right? So it's going to revolutionize the way we do all of those things that I just listed. And it's really going to push us into challenging authority, rules, social norms, laws that are just not it. It's not the gem. It's limiting. It's confining. It's restricting. Who came up with this and why? Again, it's a lot of the same energy that we talked about with Neptune in Aries and Pluto in Aquarius. And we have to remember that Uranus rules Aquarius's energy. So a lot of the things that Pluto in Aquarius is doing ties to what's happening with Uranus and Gemini. It's just, and then Gemini's that air energy. Again, it's all about that mental. So we are seeing a lot of this, not same, but similar themes coming up. It's just playing out in slightly different ways. When it comes to Gemini's intellect and dissimulation of information, it's next level. Gemini energy says, I know a better way because I've sat here and I took in all of these different things. The way we're going to learn and process information is going to be much more rapidly. It is going to be different. Our education is going to change. The way that we educate our youth, ourselves, that is all going to be radically transformed. So perhaps higher education, which we've started to see a decline in university structures or education and kind of a pushback on that, maybe education takes on a new form in this time. The way that we are valued for the ideas that we bring to society is trained up in a whole different way that doesn't look like going to get a degree or, spending this money to do this and that. Maybe it looks completely different, and I have no idea what that's going to look like. I know it's going to involve technology. I know that. I really do. But it is it's changing. It is changing. And that's one of the things that we have to keep our eyes on as Uranus moves through Gemini and disrupts and changes everything. One thing about Gemini, it's a mutable sign. So it's highly adaptable. And that adaptability makes it great because we become flexible and open to changes and wanting to try new things. But it also means that there could be many iterations and many changes before there's something that sticks, that becomes solid, that becomes the thing, the go-to thing for a while. Because it's fickle energy. It's like, oh, let's try this. And might be over here for a while. And it's like, yeah, this is working. I like it. And this is it. And then like, oh no, I changed my mind. I'm going over here. So there's a lot of that fluctuation going on in terms of that. Under Uranus and Gemini, I think our community structures are really going to change. Pluto in Aquarius is already transforming that as well. But with Uranus in Gemini, it's going to double down on the local community and the rise of the community structure and how we support each other. Because Gemini energy is very social and very tied to working in groups and teams and wanting to work with others. Our community structure over these last, I don't know how many years, has been trash, to say the least. Maybe in different parts of the world it's a little bit better, but my experience in the Western side of the world is it's not great. It's been every person on their own island trying to do all the things by themselves. And this community has been missing. It's an integral part of us developing, of us raising our families, bringing in the next generations, making things work. Everybody's just been siloed. And we are going to see a rise in that again, the community aspect. Now, what it looks like, I have no idea how it's going to play out, because in the past, before there was a breakdown of that community structure and support, it was physical. It was really physical. With where we're going now in the era of technology and all the things it being mental, it might be a different type of community and support system. Or it may very much be physical and in person. That remains to be seen. Or it might be a combination of both. I think people are craving that, and perhaps the drive up in technology will get so, I don't want to say toxic, because there are so many benefits to the technology, but maybe a part of the turnoff of technology is that people are going to crave and want that face-to-face human connection interaction again. It can go two ways. It really can. With Gemini being that genius energy, having all the brains and knowing how to come up with the information and the solutions to solve our problems, there is going to be a lot of problem solving here. A lot of things that change, that are disrupted, that are issues that we now are able to insert solutions behind. So a lot of genius inventions, low key, no, actually not low key, high key. There's a lot of people who are creative geniuses who have huge Gemini energy in their charts. So you look at some of these artists and you see their placements and you're like, wow, no wonder. There's like another level of genius within them, a creative genius, an intellect. Like, I have a son who's a Gemini, double Gemini, and I see his level of creative genius and I'm just like, sometimes I'm blown away by it. But that's what I'm talking about. So this level of innovation and genius and the creativity and the originality behind it is going to boost everything that we talked about in that Pluto and Aquarius transit, from our technology to our medicine, to the way that we travel either on the ground or in the air, to our education system, our medicine, our science, if I didn't say that already. All of that is going to change. Our jobs, the way we show up working wise, and we talked about this in a previous video, is going to change. It is going to be from a more intellectual, mental standpoint than from a physical one. Now, does the intellect have the same weight as intellect today? So is it rooted in studying books and getting degrees and things like that? Or is it a different type of intellect that is celebrated and pretty much coveted during this time? That also, I believe, will be transforming. So we just have to see how that all plays out. That's the thing with Uranus. You don't know because it's so unexpected and it's so up and down. Look at what is done in Taurus in terms of our resources, our money, different things going on there. Look at how it's changed the economy. And it's not done. It's not done. It's not done unless you're watching this in the future and it's done by now. But there's so much rapidly changing in the realm of our earthly resources. So, and our value system while Uranus is moving through Taurus. So wherever Uranus is moving through, it's just so unexpected. And you never know when the twists and turns are going to happen. So it's really, you can look at these trends and you can say, hey, I believe it's going in this direction. And I think it does have the spirit and the energy, but you don't know exactly how it's going to play out because that's the surprise element of it. We can never fully 100% predict something. So speaking of jobs, Gemini is an energy that likes to follow curiosity and does not want to be held down to one particular standard of one way of doing things or one position or one area. That doesn't work for Gemini. Gemini needs to be a butterfly. It needs to be able to fly and spread its wings when it sees fit. Change its mind when it sees fit. So a lot of the way that we have been conditioned or groomed to put our energy focus into one area or to one thing, I think we're going to see that change. I think we're going to see it's going to be more commonly accepted to transition into different things, whether it be different jobs or, and we see that now, right, where people are changing careers, but it's going to be even more. Like for 5 years, you might be doing this, and then you might transition to this, or 2 years, and it's just going to be more widely accepted in that regard. Also with people, Gemini also needs, like I said, room to flap its wings. Being confined to the traditional structure of relationships is not conducive to this energy, which brings me back to the point that I made in the Neptune and Aries video, that people can be a lot more detached and a lot more just willing to have experiences with other people until they feel the need to go and fly off. It's not going to be like, I'm made to feel bad because I didn't stick this out for 30 years or 10 years or however long, And some people will have the constant changes and stimulation and room to be free within their dynamic in order to make those long hauls. But if you're not focused on that and you're not doing that, that's also completely okay, because that's probably going to be the common thing. With freedom being one of the things that drives Gemini energy as well, this will also lend itself to how the dynamic plays out in the family structure. It's going to change that. And we talked about this a little bit with the Neptune and Aries placement, and how the focus is going to be less about sacrifice for the team and more about empowering the individual and focusing on the individual, and how that can change family dynamics of people choosing not to have children and not to, be in long-term commitments or marriages that, they don't feel the need to do it in that particular way because it doesn't work for them. And everybody holding their own and bringing something to the table instead of one person playing this role and the other person playing that role. And Gemini is very much about throwing away those traditional roles as well, and let's make our own roles. We get to decide what we want to show up as, not what society, what the social norms have said, because we're actually throwing that away too. We're throwing away those social norms because I don't know who came up with that, but this is the way that I've identified is better, at least for me, and this is what I'm going to follow. And if you try to push me to do otherwise, goodbye. Goodbye. The family structure between that Neptune and Aries placement and this Uranus and Gemini, the relationships in the family structure, it has to change. The focus has to change. And what relationships look like change under this. And maybe people aren't getting married anymore like that. Maybe there's a sharper decline in that. And people are just valuing more connections and creating their own roles and how they want to show up for however time they want to show up in whatever way. So that is something that I definitely feel strongly is going to come into focus with this. The last thing that I will highlight that I believe that Uranus and Gemini will be changing for us is the way that we like to be stimulated or pleasured. And this is on the heels of relationship talk, right? But I say that because Gemini's energy is all mental, intellectual. That's the jam. So the stimulation is from a mental, intellectual standpoint. It's not really about physical pleasure. It's about mental or intellectual stimulation to then translate to pleasure. So what we find pleasurable or desirable as a collective or as a society probably is going to change. It's you have a lot of people, not everyone, but we've come from this very over sexualized conditioning, especially starting with the millennials on down. It's just everything was sexual. Just sex was just thrown in our face in songs and movies and videos, naked women, everything. And I think while you still have some people that are still into that, there is starting to be a rejection of that as people are like, okay, I'm tired of seeing that. I want to be stimulated in a different way. I want to be pleasured in a different way. That's what I find sexy and desirable. So I think it's going to change the way that we look at the things that are pleasurable and desirable and what really does it for us. And I know that's a different interpretation of Uranus going through Gemini, but you have to look at all sides. So relationships may not be based off of this person looks this kind of way, or they physically pleasure me in this way. There might not even be physical pleasure happening. It might just be on stimulate my mind and you're good. We may not even ever have to see each other face to face. If we're online and you just do it for my mind, I'm sold. So I'm not saying that's where I'm at. I'm just saying I can see it rising and going there. and what people value in relationships or what relationships look like in totality just change. So that is my analysis on Uranus and Gemini and my predictions there. Let's just see how this all plays out, because it's so interesting. The whole thing is interesting, and I'm kind of excited, and I'm just kind of like, oh, what's gonna happen? But I am so thrilled to at least have brought you this information, because yeah, that's that. So I hope you've enjoyed this entire series on the outer planet transits and the generational impact that they're going to have on us for the next 10 to 20 years. Please, subscribe, or go on ahead, if you're listening on Spotify, go ahead and, join this community so that you can stay up to date on all the information that's coming your way, because there are more videos, there is more information, more podcast episodes coming to you. And I just am looking forward to building with you guys and being able to share, and you share with me, and us experience this all together. I love you all. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.